Okay,
Welcome back, everybody. Good to be back to learn with everybody.
we missed you.
Um, Tonight we're going to dedicate the learning to for Refuah Shlema to Ahu Shulamit Bas Taya Edel and have a Refuah Shlema and the schus of our learning. So a number of Parshas Ki Teitzei, a number of issues here. The first is from the Shem Mishmuel, who we've learned many times. One of the great Gedolei HaChasidut. And let's see what he has to say um, about an interesting topic in the Parsha. Okay, so the Medrash, he quotes a Medrash quoting a pasuk from Mishlei, Orach Chaim Pen Tifales No Me'aglosai Lo Teda, which really means that we really do not understand the Ribono Shel Olam. It's a metaphor that's, I'm not going to go through the whole parsha in Mishlei, what it's specifically referring to in the mashal, but it means that it's hopeless for us to compare, to understand, to calculate the Ribono Shel Olam's cheshbonot, how he functions. Ma'u orach chayim pentifales Amar Rabbi Bar Kahana Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God says, Ulo tehei yoshev u'mishakel v'mitzvoteha shel Torah ke'inyan shenemar v'shakel b'feles. We weigh, God weighs on a scale, harim, the size of mountains, v'lo te'omer hoil v'hamitzvah zu gedola ani oser. In other words, the Ribono Shel Olam, we have an uncommon denominator with the Ribono Shel Olam. With things that God does, we have no shaykhs. We have no shaykhs to that. So, all of that, really, I shouldn't have even gone to the psukim, but kach lo gila HaKadosh Baruch Hu matan scharan shel mitzvot, chutz mishtei mitzvot. The Ribono Shel Olam did not reveal the reward of mitzvahs in the entire Torah except for two mitzvahs. There are only two mitzvahs in the Torah that the Ribono Shel Olam revealed the reward, right? Mitzvot hachamura shebechamurot, the most severe, the most serious mitzvah, v'hakala shebekalot, and the most simple, lenient kind of a mitzvah, with very few consequences. What's the most severe, which has so many consequences? Kibud av ve'em, honoring father and mother. Chamura shebechamurot. This is the most severe mitzvah because it impacts on the entire way that the world functions, with a sense of kavod for parents who brought us into this world. And without it, there is anarchy if there's no proper familial relation. Umatan schara arichut yamim, and the reward is long life. V'hakala shebekalot, which is in our parsha today, is shiluach hakein, sending away the mother bird. When you take the chicks or you take the eggs, there's a mitzvah in the Torah that if you're going to take the chicks or you're going to take the eggs, you have to first send away the mother to spare her the remorse of seeing this happen. And mahu schara, by this, because it's a mitzvah of very little consequence for us, right? So it's on the lower end of the totem pole. And what's the reward? Arichut yamim, also long life. So you have only two mitzvahs that are given, the reward is given, and the reward is a significant reward, long life, right? So now the Shem Mishmuel is going to ask two questions with regards to this idea. Yesh liit bonein, we have to figure out what's going on here. Lama be'emet schar on shava. Why is the schar equal? Why should the schar for kibud av ve'em be the same as going and shooing away a mother bird when you take the eggs of the mother, right? V'halo Mishnah Shlema Shaninu in Pirkei Avot. We have a very famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. This is the season of saying Pirkei Avos. Lefum tzara agra, right? According to the pain is the reward, right? No pain, no gain. That's a Mishnah. That's a Mishnah in the Torah in Pirkei Avot. So that would tell us that there is a hierarchy in mitzvahs. The more difficult it is to perform the mitzvah, the more reward there should be for that mitzvah. So what does it mean that we don't know the difference? Vikvar di Barnabas, we've spoken about this. He says, Vanira Odlomar, my second question. Dine, there's a Gemara in Kedushin, Schar mitzvah b'hai al maleka. The reward for mitzvahs ultimately is not in this world. Ulamani tavlach v'harachta yamim, when the Torah says it will be good for you and you will have length of days, either for shiluach hakan, sending away the mother bird, or for honoring mother and father. Pirshu Zal, the rabbis explain, la'olam shekulo tov. This is in the world that is only good. Ula'olam shekulo aroch. Zeu olam haba. This is only in the world to come. Only in the world to come is there reward for mitzvahs. There's no reward in this world. V'hinei olam haba ayin lo ra'ata. Nobody ever saw it. Nobody ever came back and gave us a report. Elokim zulatcha, except for the Rabbanu Shalom. V'hu davar shebilti efshar letzayer. You cannot describe. We cannot begin to describe for ourselves what olam haba is all about. Lifnei shochnei bate chomer, to we who are living in the physical world. Kemo shekatuva Rambam, the Rambam writes, shehu kashem, just like similarly, she'i efshar letzayer lifnei hasuma. You cannot explain to a suma mileda, someone who was born blind, umibeten, right, from the womb, hamara, you can't tell him, describe for him adequately the sunrise or sunset. V'lifnei hacheresh noam hakolot v'neginut, you cannot explain the beauty of music to someone who is deaf, who cannot hear, right? So how can we really understand what the reward is going to be in Olam Haba? So the first question he's asking is, Zelo fair. What are you telling me that all rewards are equal and it's a level playing field? The Mishnah says it's not a level playing field. The more tsar, the more schar. The more pain, the more gain. The difficult the mitzvah is, there should be more. So it makes sense, right? So he wants to add one more point before he answers these two questions. V'yesh lahosif, I want to add something here. V'lomar, I want to say, ki olam haba, olam hamitzpun. Olam haba is a hidden world. It's a hidden world. V'alkein efshar she'ad nigla lebasar v'dam. It's impossible that we should be able to see what's going on in the world of truth, in the afterlife, in the olam haba, the olam ha'emet, the world of truth. Shehu ba'olam hazeh olam hanigla. We're in the revealed world here, right? Umashigila b'shtei mitzvot hanal. So what is revealed in these two mitzvahs is going to come to answer these two questions now. Matan scharan la'olam haba says that the reward is obviously in the world to come. That's clear. Any reward that we get for these two mitzvahs or any other mitzvah is in the world to come, right? Ein ze mahut ve'echud haschar. It cannot be that it's about the quality of the reward that we're getting, or the quantity of the reward we're getting. Ela shebeschar mitzvah yizakeh v'yagil olam haba. What we are sure of, what we are assured of, is that we will be rewarded for mitzvahs in the world to come. Yes, mitzvahs are equal in the sense that every mitzvah that we perform comes with a reward in the olam ha'emet, in the world of truth. That's true. But what the reward, shehu olam shekulo tov v'kulo aroch, is the world that's purely good, right? So everybody gets a reward. Aval haschar shekibel, but what the reward is, we don't know what it is. So there are two dimensions here. There's not a contradiction here, right? All rewards are equal, even the lowest, what seems to be the most insignificant mitzvah, that we're going to change the world by doing that mitzvah of shooing away the mother bird, and the most dramatic, most powerful mitzvah of kibud av v'em, the relationship between generations, between mother and father and children, right? They all get a mitzvah in olam haba, but there's a mitzvah, there's a schar in olam haba. One dimension is, yes, we will receive a reward in the world to come. Everybody gets a reward. That's the level playing field. What the reward is, right? Lefi hatzar haschar. That depends on how difficult the mitzvah is, and he's going to explain. V'sham vadai ein schar shel zeh domelis shel zeh. Obviously, in the world to come, the reward that someone gets is not the same for each person. Everybody, right? There's all kinds of things that are impacting on our lives. V'afilu b'mitzvah achat, even with the same mitzvah. Shinui haschar lefi mahut ve'echut hasiyah. So the reward will be for someone who keeps Shabbat and another person who keeps Shabbat. But the reward for keeping Shabbat will be depend on the mahut, the echut, asiyah, the quality of my Shabbos observance, right? Kemasat regesh, my emotion, my passion. How much passion am I putting into the mitzvah? Hanefesh, how much spirituality am I putting into it? Vahitlahavut, right? Again, passion, udvekut, attaching ourselves to the Ribono Shalom, that we want to embrace the Ribono Shalom through this mitzvah. V'yira, and a sense of reticence and fear. V'ahava, how much love do I have when I perform the mitzvah? Shahayu be'asiyata, when I do the mitzvah. Ki ha'olam haba hu olam hamitzpun, because olam haba is hidden. It's a mystery. So there's two dimensions here. There's not a contradiction here. With regard to the fact that everybody can get a reward in olam haba, that's equal, level playing field. What the reward is, that's not level, right? So everybody gets a reward, right? Another sefer he's quoting. And that's what the Mishnah is saying, that according to the pain is the gain, is the reward. But just to get a ticket to get into Olam Haba, right? That's equal. You perform a mitzvah, you have a ticket, you can get into Olam Haba. We get into Olam Haba, Mirz Hashem. It's, the rabbis give a mashal. Everybody comes in the same door. V'sham notnim l'kol echad ve'echad mator lefi chvodo. But once we get in, everybody, you check in at the counter in Olam Haba, but everybody is given a different room, right? Some people get a penthouse, some people get a deluxe room, some people have a room they have to share maybe with 47 people, right? It's not the same. The quality of the reward is not the same. So there's no contradiction here. Uba'asher haTorah lo bira, and the Torah doesn't tell us el sheschar sheyizke yagil olam hahu v'lo yoter. All we know is that the reward is in Olam Haba. B'zeh oralanu she'i efshar lahagid etzem schar ha'olam haba. We don't know the exact reward, what it's going to be. Hanelam lebasar v'dam. It's hidden to us, b'olam hazeh, in this world. Olam hanigla, the revealed world. V'shuv ein shayach liot yoshev u'mishakel eze mitzvah gedola v'schara meruba. You can't sit and say, well, you know what? Let me do this mitzvah. This is a more important mitzvah. Maybe I'll get more schar for this, right? Let me do it, right? Torah doesn't reveal such a thing. I won't bother with this mitzvah. It's not. No, that's what he's telling us. Do every mitzvah. B'asher zochin lo b'shvil chelkei hamitzpun shebe mitzvah. Right? It doesn't work that way. We have to do everything. We have to do all of Torah, right? Ubevadai shebeschar mitzvah ktana. Clearly, for the reward for a small mitzvah, seemingly small mitzvah, ela shenasta beregesh hanefesh v'itlavut yiteru, but it's done with passion. It's done with love, right? Yizke l'rav tuv v'tzafon. Obviously, that person is going to get more schar. Yoter mibishvil mitzvah gedola, more so than doing a great mitzvah. Shenasit beregesh nefesh muad, which is done with a little bit of passion. How serious are we when we get up and when we start to daven? Are we really paying attention to what we're saying? Are we really concentrating on? We're actually talking to the Ribono Shalom, and he is listening. Now, actually, the Rambam says it in he doesn't bring the Rambam, but the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva. It's timely now to talk about the laws of Tshuva from the Rambam, and the Rambam says it very clearly. Who decides what schar is going to be? What's a better mitzvah, right? You live in Yerushalayim, you're a Kodesh. You live in Eretz Yisrael. You live in another Mokum Torah in Chutz La'aretz, and you do all the mitzvahs. You study Torah. You keep Shabbos. You give tzedakah, right? And but then there's this one Jew who lives in Wichita, Kansas, and he doesn't do anything else except one thing. He keeps kosher. He has his meat flown in from, I don't know what the closest place is, from Denver. He has his meat flown in, but he keeps kosher, strictly keeps kosher. The one mitzvah he keeps in Wichita, Kansas. Whose schar is more? The schar that we have by trying to do all the mitzvahs, or this Jew? So the Rambam says, it's only the Rabbanu Shem. Rak hayodea ta'alumot. It's only the Yodea Ta'alumot, the person, meaning the Rabbanu Shem, who knows our inner hearts, but also Ta'alumot could mean the worlds, this world and the next world, right? The Rabbanu Shem knows who is getting the better reward. We don't know it, but it would make sense to us that such a Jew, obviously, although the facts on the ground, it doesn't seem it's not fair. It's hello fair. I'm doing all these mitzvahs, keeping one mitzvah, but you can see that how the Rabbanu Shalom functions is very differently. He looks at Mesiras Nefesh, he looks at our passion, he looks at our love and our fear. So there's no question here. There are two concepts of the mitzvah of Shiluch HaKan, a very simple mitzvah with very little consequences in the world that we live in, right? It's not going to necessarily make the world a better place, although the Ramban does say that it's a lesson. It's all, I would say that it's, I would put it in the fall. It's the first animal experimentation in the Torah, right? We're not really showing Rahmanas. We're by showing a kind of Rahmanas to a bird, a mother bird, it teaches us to have Rahmanas between human beings. So it's an animal experimentation. So it does have an effect on society, Shiluch HaKain, but a very limited effect when you compare it to other mitzvahs like Kibbud Aveim, right? It's interesting, by the way, just to get it before we move on, something very similar to Kibbud Aveim and Shiluch HaKain, even though they're at opposite ends of the spectrum. Except for the Aruch HaShulchan and maybe one other authority, there's no bracha that we say on Shiluch HaKain. There's no bracha. Most poskim say if you're going to make a bracha when you do Shiluch HaKain, say it without Shemu Malchus. Say Baruch Atah Elokeinu Melech Olam Asher Kitsham Tzivanu L'Shaleach Et Ha'em, right? Something like that, right? Kibbud Aveim. Have you ever noticed there's no bracha for Kibbud Aveim? Mother asks you to get her a cup of tea. Sure, just a minute before you give it to her. Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Olam Asher Kitsham Tzivanu Al Mitzvahs Kibbud Aveim. Why is there no bracha for Kibbud Aveim? Why is there no bracha? Right? Because Kibbud Aveim is in the category of mitzvah sichliut. It's just logical. It's common sense. You don't need the Torah to command you, right? You don't have to be a brain surgeon to understand, living in a civilized world, that you have to honor parents, that one has to honor parents. So for a mitzvah seichel, there's no bracha. That's, by the way, one of the reasons why there's no bracha for the mitzvah of tzedakah. Same idea. There are other reasons. The Rashba says a reason, the person might not take it, so it'll be a bracha of atala. You're giving money, but he doesn't take it. You've made a blessing in vain. But the other reason is it's a mitzvah of seichel to help other people, right? Okay, let's move on. The number 2 starts at the last line, happens to be on the bottom of page 1. It's from the Emes L'Yaakov, from Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, and it's over the page to the second page. And he's going to talk about something very interesting. It says, Lo yavo mamzer b'kahal Hashem. In this parsha, it talks about who we can marry and who we cannot marry, right? Talking about mamzer, an Egyptian, a Moni, a Yibum, Gerushin, if there's a get, if there's a divorce, how do you relate to that? Who can marry a divorced person, and so on and so forth, right? So he has a very simple question. There's a watershed moment between Sefer Bamidbar and Sefer Dvorim. Until Bamidbar, we were living with revealed miracles, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was with a direct relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kaviyachol. We were living in a miraculous time. We were living miraculously. And the watershed moment is when we now are going to enter into Eretz Yisrael, which Sefer Devorim is preparing us for, the last of the Chumashim, the Chumash, Swarm Chumash, is a different. It's now up to us. In other words, until Devorim, it was a world. The kedusha was coming from God to us. Our responsibility now is to build the land. It's we have to bring the kedusha up to the Ribbono Shel Olam. It's in our hands now. We have to have a melech. We have to have a society, a just society, and create an environment, social environment. So it's a watershed moment. And therefore, he asked, Be'emed, yesh lanu la'ayin, we have to understand, man yanim shel kol dinei yishut v'nisuin b'sefer Devarim. What are these laws of marriage, family and marriage, doing here? Right? The hello. Biarti becoming Mekomot, Rabbi Yaakov says, this is Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. I've said in many places that in other parts, actually last week's Parsha has a comment, Ulahalim Parshat Vayelech we're going to have soon. The Be'emet Sefer Devarim, the book of Devarim, the last of the 5 Chumashim, Sefer Hanogeya Lemelech, it is a sefer about the king and the commonwealth, right? Ulinyane Tzibur, it's about the collective of Klal Yisrael, the community. It's about building a meaningful Jewish community, ideally in Eretz Yisrael. That was where we were heading, right? V'hainu Moshe v'amdo ba'arvot Moab, when Moshe stood in the plains of Moab, v'ra shehu lo yikanes le'Eretz Yisrael, and he saw that he's not coming into Eretz Yisrael, hayichlit lachzor v'lishanot et hamitzvot hanogat el tzibur v'aklal. So he made a determination to review those mitzvot, much of the last sefer, Dvorim, known by another name as Mishnah Torah, repetition of the Torah, that he reviewed all of these laws that will be necessary to build a just society, to build a society with law and order and governance, a melech, a king, and dayanim and judges and so on. Ubnei Yisrael yedu ma la'asot b'haknasatam le'Eretz Yisrael, so we would know what to do when we come into Eretz Yisrael. Aval madua nichtavu dinim elu shel mamzer v'gittin v'yivu mukadoma b'sefer zeh. So why all these laws of marriage? Who you can marry, who you cannot marry? Why is this important to talk about marriage at this point, right? Halo lechura mikomam hu b'sefer vayikra. It belongs in Vayikra, Shar Hilchot Arayot. In Sefer Vayikra, there's a whole discussion of who we can marry and who we can't marry. That's where the broader topic is discussed. So he wants to say something which I think is a very majestic idea. Aval nira mizeh, what I want to suggest is, she'inyan hanisuin, a marriage, Eitzel b'nei Yisrael, for the Jewish people, eino inyan prati. It's not a private affair. It's not a family affair. You get an invitation, you're going to the wedding, it's a private affair. Hanogei l'shnei hatzdadim u'mishpachtam bilvad. It only applies to the mechutonim, to the two families, to the chos and kala. That's what a wedding is. It's a private affair. Elahu nogei l'kal kulano. The wedding is a Klal Yisrael moment. A wedding of a Jewish boy and girl is a Klal Yisrael moment. It's a national celebration. Shal yedei nisuav, via the marriage, nichnas habachur lekahal Yisrael. The couple enter into the community of the Jewish people. They become part of the collective of Klal Yisrael. Ulechein mi she'eno yachol hinasei nikra b'Torah b'loshen Chazal b'shem psulei kahal. Those who are not allowed to marry into the Jewish people are called psulei kahal. They're rejected from the kahal. B'hainu shu nifsal miliot chelik me'kahal. He's not part of the kahal. V'hu tzarich lishaer kamo shehaya yachid latzmo. He has to remain as a single person by himself, not part of. He's not joining the tzibur means to create a family. Ulechein kol hadinim akshur mimzeh mi mutar umi umatai mutar. So all of these laws, who is allowed to marry, who you're not allowed to marry, when do you get married, when do you not get married? Ve'eich pratei advar v'nasim. How are the details? Kol zeh chelik mitorah tzibur. Right. This is a national moment, a marriage. Now, if there's any generation that could appreciate this, it's our generation. The weddings that are taking place now, particularly here in Eretz Yisrael. I did a wedding last week, and I have another one in Mitzvah Shem on Friday. And these are chassid and kalas who were in the army, who are still in the army. And with everything we're going through now, we're making weddings, right? Which maybe doesn't make much sense. How can we have a wedding under these circumstances? Well, those words are maybe for the chuppah. And you can come to the way everybody's invited to the wedding. It's a Klal Yisrael moment, but we're celebrating simchas. That's the national moment. The war, the fighting, the army. This is temporal, but building a Jewish home, building a Jewish family, that is the real Klal Yisrael moment. So then he adds a kind of PS here, a beautiful idea for Rabbi Yaakov, but he adds a halachic PS, an interesting halacha. The men will be familiar with this. There's a prayer we say in davening called tachanun. There are certain days that we don't say tachanun in davening, right? 2 examples, right? V'zehu hatam, this is the reason he says, she'im chatan mipalel beved hakneset. If a chassan is in shul during the week of Sheva Brachas, az kol hatzibur she'etzlo p'turim milomar tachanun. We don't say tachanun. If there's a chassan in shul, then we do not say tachanun. V'lo matzinu din zeh, but there's an opposite side of the coin. In a house of mourning, we do not say tachanun, right? L'rachmana litzlan, in a house of mourning, we leave out tachanun. But lo matzinu din zeh ba'avel, let's say there's no minyan, there's no shiva minyan in the shiva house, and the avel, the mourner, has to come to shul. So he doesn't say tachanun in the mourner's house. So he's now coming in to shul. Shalom aved avel, not davening in the shiva house. El mishum, but we still say tachanun in shul. Tachanun is said in shul, even though the mourner is there. And normally by the mourner you don't say tachanun. But when the chassan comes to shul, we don't say tachanun, just like the chassan, right? Why? He says, Ela mishum shesimchas chassan eino rak shem simchato, ela simchat kol hatzibur. It's not just a private simcha of the chassan kala. A wedding, the chassan, it is a Klal Yisrael moment. It's our simcha when he comes into my shul and he's davening this chassan. I don't say tachanun. The whole tzibur doesn't have to say tachanun because it's our simcha. V'kulam niftarim milomar tachanun, and we're all exempt from saying tachanun. Machmat shezehu simchatam mamash. It's our simcha. V'lo mishum simchat chatan, not just the simcha of the chassan, but by an avel rachmana litzlan, when someone is mourning, it's a private tragedy. We have to be menachem him, we have to comfort him, but we're not mourning, right? By a wedding, we're all celebrating. By a mourner, we're comforting, but we're not celebrating, and therefore we have to say tachanun. Okay, let's go to the third piece here that we have on the sheet. And the third piece I have is two psukim of introduction to number 3 pieces. It's really an idea from Rav Schwab, which is in number 6, but we're going to build up to it, just some source material that we need to understand it. In our Parsha, right, talks about the mitzvah of having just measures, weighing by when you, in business, right, when you weigh that meat, if you're a butcher, right, you have to have precise measures. Evan shlema v'tzedek yelecha, efa shlema v'tzedek, these different measures, you have to have proper, right? So that your days will be long. You will have long life. Al ha'adama, right? Asher Hashem Elokecha noten lecha, from the day on the land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. Now, somebody actually wrote me a shaila, an email this week about this. Why is there? We say that there are only 2 mitzvahs that we have Arichos Yamim, Kibud Av V'Eim and Shiluch HaKan, right? But here you have a 3rd mitzvah. It says you have Arichos Yamim. But if you read the pasuk carefully, it's not the Arichos Yamim that we talked about for sending away the Shiluch HaKan or for honoring mother and father. That's Olam Haba. This is a promise of Arichos Yamim in Eretz Yisrael, that by keeping these monetary laws, of honesty in business, we will merit long life in Eretz Yisrael for us and for all of Klal Yisrael. Ki toavat Hashem Elokecha. It is an abomination to God. Kol ose'ela, kol ose'ela, whoever does this, right? And what comes after? What happens to us if we don't keep the proper halachas of business ethics? Zachor et asher asalacha Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you, Badera. Amalek will come as a result of our rejection of the business ethics and not being honest in business. Okay, number 5. That was our parsha. But if you go back to Parshas B'Shalach, you see another reason for Amalek coming. The Jewish people were complaining in B'Shalach. They wanted water. They came out of Mitzrayim. We want water, right? Al Riv b'nei Yisrael, al nisotam et Hashem. They tested Hashem. But you have a right to ask from the Rebbeinu Shalom, but not to be testy. You can test Hashem, you can ask him, but not with chutzpah. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu imayin. Maybe God was not here, right? So they actually challenged their faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu was very, very on a very low level, right? What happened because of that? Vayavo Amalek. Amalek came, vayilachem im Yisrael b'rifidim, and he went to battle with us. So here, Rav Schwab, in a very lengthy piece, I'm just sharing one paragraph with you. In a very lengthy piece, Rav Schwab talks about what's going on here, right? Why is Amalek coming? What's the threat of Amalek? So he says like this. He's going to review this quickly. Hashta da'atin alachi. Now that I've come to whatever he came to, name of Mills, I want to say something. Hine, b'sibat biat Amalek. The reason why Amalek will come and battle us, right? The arch enemy of the Jewish people, Amalek. We don't know officially who Amalek is, but we don't have to be, again, nuclear physicists to figure out who is Amalek in our day right now. Right, the arch enemy that wants to kill the Jewish people for no reason no rhyme or reason except that they want to kill the Jewish people. Right, Nim's a stira, but there's a stira. There's a contradiction in the Torah. Why Amalek is going to come? The threat of Amalek. You have a Parshat B'Shalach. In this Parshat B'Shalach here, it says, "Ki nisotem Hashem lemor hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu imayin." It was a lack of faith, a crisis of emunah. V'yavo Amalek, and Amalek comes from that. B'medrash Tanchuma, the Medrash quotes this: "B'libam hayu masichin v'Hakadosh Baruch Hu noten lehem shelatam." He answered he heard their question. Shenemar, right? V'yanusu el levavchem lishol aval lenafsham ochal lenafsham. He answered them. He gave them the food they wanted, right? Amar len HaKadosh Baruch Hu kach hirhartem hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu v'chayechem. You question my existence by your life. Hareini modi lechem lekach v'yavo Amalek. I'm going to send Amalek. You're going to now have to deal with Amalek. That's B'Shalach, right? The Medrash makes it much clearer, but the Psukim say it, right? For our lack of emunah. Aval b'Parshat Teitzei, but in Parshat Ki Teitzei, in our Parsha this week, lo yelecha b'kischa even ve'even. It said, don't have unjust business ethics, weights and measures that were no good. Ki to'avad Hashem Elokecha kol oseh hela. This is an abomination. Kol asher we saw. Zachor et asher asalacham. I'm going to bring Amalek. Remember what Amalek did? He's going to come back. Dorshu Chazal, the Medrash there says, Im ra'ita dor shemidotav sheker. If you see a generation whose measures are false, whose ethics are sheker, are false, you should know Shahamalchut mitgara, that the Malchut mitgara ba'oto ador, that we are going to be persecuted in that generation, right? Shenemar, listen, I'm not a prophet, right? I'm not going to make a contemporary commentary here, but we can do better in everything that we do, and every mitzvah that we do, everything that we do will bring about Shalom al Yisrael. But shenemar lo yelecha b'kischa even be'even, right? Lo yelecha b'veitcha efo ve'efo. Don't have different kinds of measures. A heavy measure, a light measure, depends on who comes in. You're going to use the easy measure. You're going to give them a bargain, right? You're going to lie. You're going to cheat for the other person. Matam kitovar Hashem, because this is an abomination. Ma ktiv acharav. What's the quid pro quo? Zachoret asher asalecha Amalek. I'm going to bring Amalek. So which is it? Why does Amalek come? Is it because we are dishonest in business ethics? Or is it because we lack emunah? We lack faith. So he says, Hainu shetravayu isnube. Both. Now, the easy way to answer this is one is ben odom lechavero, between man and man, to be honest in your business ethics, right? The other is to have emunah b'Hashem, ben odom lechavero. But I think he's saying something much deeper. He says both of them work in tandem. They blend together. There's a synthesis here, right? Shahaya chisor and emunah b'Kodesh Baruch Hu, because I lack emunah Kodesh Baruch Hu. Shakol tolui biado. Everything really depends on him. Gam chisor b'emunat adam chavero b'mida b'mishkal b'meshura. Right? In other words, somebody, has the Yetzer Hara. Sometimes I'm going to cheat in business, right? So for $20, not good. But somebody offers me a deal for $50,000. I don't know. It's a little bit under the table. I'll just share with you an example. Somebody came to me a few years ago. They had a shaila about bituach liumi, about national pension here in Israel. If you're making money from outside the country, let's say you have investments, or if you don't have investments, if you're getting a Social Security from the United States or from Canada or from Great Britain, and it's a certain amount, you have to declare it. And it's not a lot that you will lose the bituach leumi. You will not be able to get the bituach leumi in Israel if you are getting this Social Security in a different country, if it's over a certain limit, right? So this person came to me and she asked me a shaila. I could very easily, I am getting Social Security, but it's not a lot of money we make. I can put it in an account in wherever the origin, whether it's England or America or Canada, and no one will be the wiser, right? Can I do that? I get bituach leumi. I earn bituach leumi. I'm here. I earn the money. So the one you say you earn the money. You're bituach leumi. You're eligible for bituach leumi. But bituach leumi comes with the rules and regulations. One of those rules, we can try to fight it in court, right? We can try to change the law, right? That's, by the way, a lot of what this is in the parcel, by the way, in the package of reforming the justice system, right? A lot of these things are not really in the law books, but they were personal decisions of people that did not go through a proper justice system. But in any case, the law today is you get bituach leumi, but if you're making such and such from a different bituach, you can't get bituach leumi. What can I do? So the answer is you have to go with the law, especially in Eretz Yisrael. You're talking about Jews. You're talking about a Jewish state. You're talking about Eretz Yisrael. You're talking about Medinat Yisrael. That's a whole different ball of wax, right? And the answer is no. So what's going to stop a person? Not even asking a shaila. I'm not going to cheat all my life. I ran a business. I didn't cheat anybody. But here, I'm retiring. I need a little bit more money. So, so maybe, I can do that, right? No. It all impacts on the mitzvah of emunah b'Hashem. If I have emunah b'Hashem, if I am connected to the Ribbono Shel Olam, then it's a no-brainer. The two work in tandem, right? Just weights, living ethically, and being responsible to the Ribbono Shel Olam, that I have to do what's right in the eyes of the Ribbono Shel Olam. So that's what Rav Schwab says. That there are two reasons are really one reason. Okay, let me just add something. We have a minute or two. Just add something that's not on the sheet. We have a number of mitzvahs here. We talk about Amalek. We have the mitzvah of Amalek, of destroying Amalek, right? The arch enemy of the Jewish people. So the Torah says asher korcha baderech, that Amalek came asher korcha baderech. They cooled you off in the kind of a metaphor, but they cooled the Jewish people off when they came to attack us. Now, what does it mean they cooled off the Jewish people? So Rashi brings a story, a mashal, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. What did Amalek do? You think of a boiling cauldron of water. Nobody, everybody needed to bathe to use the water to cool it down, but nobody wanted to take the chance. You dive in the boiling cauldron, you'll die. Amalek dived into the cauldron, which obviously lowered the temperature, right? So that's what Amalek did, right? And made it easier for other people to attack us. Now, this really requires a little bit of an explanation. Amalek came to fight with us and we decimated them, that battle of Amalek. We were victorious, right? It was a showcase battle between us and Amalek, right? So, how did he actually pull us down, right? What's going on here? So, one could suggest that the Amalek cannot live with a world with the justice and the ethics of the Torah. The monotheism that Avram Avinu brought into the world and gave over to his son and his grandson and Moshe Rabbeinu in the Torah, that was our goal. When we came out of Mitzrayim, we were headed to Eretz Yisrael, and our purpose, our raison d'etre in life was to bring monotheism and ethics to the world. Amalek can't live with that. They can't live with the fact that Jewish ethics, the ethics of the Torah, are going to be ruling the world, right? They couldn't bear it, right? So, you're even willing to jump into a cauldron and kill yourself. That's a suicide bomber. That's a suicide bomber. Because I would rather die than live in a world where there are Jews. I would rather die than live in a world where I have to go with the justice of the Torah, right? That's, in a certain sense, that's what it means. It cooled us. It made it easier for them to, even under even a threat of death, to repeat the Amalek experience of being a suicide bomber, right? To the point I would rather die than. Fortunately, we're living in a time where we're seeing this in real life, and we have to continue our davening and our learning, and that the Rebbeinu Shalom should bring an end to this situation and bring home the hostages, both kinds of hostages. The real hostages and the chayalim, the holy soldiers, are also hostage to this war. They're fighting for us for survival. So, Rebbeinu Shalom, these Rishoyim we should really be saying, send them home, not bring them home, as if the government is at fault. The government's not at fault. They have to support and protect Bnei Yisrael and Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael.